Extra Yarn by Mac Barnett and illustrated by John Klassen. John Klassen has illustrated and written some other books. If you remember reading about the hat when we were doing the letter H, he wrote 3 books about hats then. And so see if you can see his drawings and recognize them. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town, where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. So she went home and knit herself a sweater. And when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars too. But there was still extra yarn. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed and said, "You two look ridiculous." "You're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. So here's Nate over here. Do you think Nate was jealous? It turned out he was. But even after she'd made a sweater for Nate and his dog and for herself and for Mars, her dog, she still had extra yarn. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet!" shouted Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone! Annabelle, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Then I'll knit one for everyone," Annabelle said, "so they won't have to turn around." "Impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't." What do you think? Do you think she's going to do it anyway? I think so. But it turned out she could, and she did, even for Mr. Norman. And when she was done, Annabelle still had some extra yarn. So she knit sweaters for her mom and dad, and for Mr. Pendleton, and Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and for little Louis. She made sweaters for everyone, except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, and who would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. "No sweater for me, thanks," said Mr. Crabtree. So she made Mr. Crabtree a hat. And then, even then, Annabelle still had extra yarn. Seems a little magical to me, doesn't it to you? She made sweaters for all the dogs, all the cats, and for other animals too. Soon people thought, soon Annabelle will run out of yarn. Do you recognize this bear? He looks like a bear in the hat books, doesn't he? But it turned out she didn't. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even wear sweaters. Like can you say it with me? Mailbox, birdhouse, and house. Kind of crazy. But they look really pretty. Things began to change in that town. News spread of the remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn, and people came to visit from around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. One day, an archduke who was very fond of clothes sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabelle. Does he look very happy or friendly? I don't think so. "Little girl," said the archduke, "I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I am willing to offer you $1 million. "No, thank you," said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. The archduke's mustache twitched. $2 million, he said. Annabelle shook her head. "No, thanks." $10 million, shouted the archduke. "Take it or leave it." "Leave it," said Annabelle. "I won't sell the yarn." And she didn't. That is a lot of money to turn down. She must like to knit. So that night the archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house, and they stole the box and took it to the archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed over the sea. That was kind of nasty, wasn't it? back to his castle. The Archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his best chair. Then he took out the box, he lifted its lid, and he looked inside. Ooh. What do you think he's going to find? Let's see. His mustache quivered. It shivered. It trembled. The Archduke hurled the box out the window and shouted, "Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again." Let's see what happens next. But, check it out. It's going on an ice floe a long way. Let's find out where it lands. The little girl finds it again. How exciting. I wonder what she does. Let's see. It turned out she was. So she was happy again, even though the Archduke said he cursed her. She was happy because now she could make more things. Do you think that the box had something to do with her being kind and wanting to make things for other people? It reminds me of a Bible story. Do you remember the Bible story about the man named Elijah? And there was a drought in the land. That means there wasn't much rain. And he went to a town, and there was a woman there who was gathering some sticks for a fire so that she could make some bread for herself and her son. And then that was the end. They didn't have much flour. They didn't have much oil. And when that was gone, then she said she would die. So Elijah asked her if she could make him a little bit of bread first and then make for herself. And she did. And her oil and her bread, or her flour, never ran out. God did a miracle. Sounds kind of like a miracle in here too, right?